we've had this conversation before with a lady called Ellie, who I know helped you with your diagnosis with your condition. This was her in 2014, I think it was, when she came in to discuss it. You had no idea, much like her, no idea what this was. When do you think you were first aware of it?
As a child, I used to suffer from urinary tract infections. I've got a slightly wonky kidney, which was causing issues there. So my mum was noticing sort of a fishy odour even back then, but we put it down to that. But as sort of time's gone on and now I've got my diagnosis, there's so many things that I'm thinking now.
Was it to do with that? Yeah.
So I can't really say definitely there was a time when I thought
it was that moment, but really tough for you. I mean, kids can be cruel at school at the best of times. So if you've got something like this, was school tough?
I wasn't the sort of kid that really fitted in anyway. If I had a chance to get up on stage and do something daft just to make other people laugh, that was me.
Right, OK.
And I was just really sort of anxious. Because it did crop up quite a bit at school.
And what did people say to you?
It was questions like, oh, you smell a fish today, Kel. And it's like, oh, I've had fish paste sandwiches for my lunch.
You make it up to cover it. Yeah.
And it was just, oh, sort of, oh, have you been eating onions? And I'm like, no.
Oh, gosh.
What about as you got older, sort of teenage years, that sort of thing?
As I sort of moved on to sixth form college and at university, it didn't really cause that much of a problem. I think I was a happier individual in myself.
Stress can help, can cause a little bit, can't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it can make it just a little worse.
The more stress you're under, whether it be physical or mental, it can actually really exacerbate it. It can make it a lot worse.
And we should point out at this point that this is nothing to do with personal hygiene in any case whatsoever.
No.
In fact, that makes it worse, because you did go through phases of, excessive showering.
Oh, ridiculous amounts of showering. And I think one of the problems was I was using a very strong body wash with eucalyptus and mint in it. And I'm not sure you can imagine combining that smell with onions and fish. And I can imagine it was quite uncomfortable for my colleagues at work.
Well, it's
in close quarters.
It's not there every day, and it is genetic. And so it's the way your body copes with proteins and enzymes and breaks things down.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing you can do about it. And you mentioned work. They've been really helpful, haven't they? I think one of the papers got it wrong and said because you're a radiographer in Oldham at the hospital.
Yeah.
And one of the papers said that you've been moved to the nights, but that's not the case.
I made the decision to go on to nights because at the time it was before my diagnosis, and I was really uncomfortable because I felt like I was making other people uncomfortable. Nobody turned around to me and said, you must go on nights, you've got to go and do this, that or the other. That was never said. It was a decision I made to make me happier.
And so, Michael, what's it like for you? Because you two met online originally, and so you started chatting online, met up for a first date. Did you notice it to begin with? What was that like in the day?
I honestly didn't notice it to begin with, no. No, it came as a bit of a surprise to me, you know. When we first started seeing each other, I sort of caught a little bit of a whiff of it, but it was more sort of, it didn't seem strange to me at all.
Right,
yeah,
OK.
It sort of...
And it must be painful for you, sort of, when she gets upset or comes home from work or somebody said something, or just those moments. It must be difficult for you because you love her so much to see her going through that pain.
Very difficult, yeah. It makes me not angry. That's a bit too strong a word, but it does upset me a little bit. Yeah.
Well, people immediately jump to conclusions they don't understand.
Yeah.
And I suppose really because there are so few people in the world with this, it's not something that we see or hear of very often. And as I said, it was actually Ellie James on April the 8th in 2014. She came on this show as an article that was written off the back of that interview that made you think, oh my goodness me, this could very well be what I have.
Yeah, definitely. There was several other things as well on the internet, and the more I researched about it, the more I thought, well, it's not just a fishy odour, it can be various other odours, and it isn't all the time. There are some people it does affect them 24/7, and that must be an absolute nightmare for them. I'm lucky in the sense that, as far as I know, it doesn't affect me 24/7. But it did make getting the diagnosis that little bit more complicated.
And you can't cure it, but you can control it slightly when it comes to foods. There are certain foods that will trigger it more.
Yeah. Anything that's high in a chemical called choline. But I was even reading up on that recently, and that's not always a surefire thing. You could cut the majority of choline out of your diet and still produce the smell, and it's a really hard diet. I tried doing it for a week to cut pretty much everything out, and I was, you know, you get to 36 and you've developed your eating habits by that point, and it's hard.
Well,
thank you for
by coming here and talking about it once more, more people know about it. You might help
else,
someone else the way Ellie did you.
Thank you.
I've been
you, guys.
Absolutely amazed by the amount of response that I've had. It's been awesome.
Thank you both. Thank you very much.